Okay, now we're on.
Ah.
Once I start sharing, I should do the everyone follows me, right?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Just wanted to move out of Vietnam. There we go. Yeah, I just moved in last week.
You moved again?
Yep. And I'm going to move next year also. I'm only renting this place.
You're acting like a college student, Jerry.
I know.
Right back to the beginning.
Life is a circle.
Yep.
It is.
The old classic Sphinx riddle. 4 legs, then 2 legs, then 3 legs.
Yep.
So what smoking hole in the earth is behind you?
Kilauea.
Ah.
I took that a while back with a BlackBerry.
Kilauea is fine. Helicopters are fine.
Okay. Jabra, thanks for calling me. But speaking of thumb drive, I have a dash cam, built-in dash cam in my car, and I had the original thumb drive in there, and I went to put a 1 terabyte thumb byte in there, and it kept saying the drive wasn't mounted. And I know it was formatted and everything else. But what I found is that the thumb drives aren't really fast enough for the Tesla dash cam. So
Yeah,
I
there's
had to,
not fast enough, or won't take 1 terabyte. Higher speed media than.
yes.
Right, like there are different rated
What?
SD cards.
Right.
It was recommended I use a class 10 with video.
Anybody hear the air conditioner running in the back? I'm going to mute anyway.
The thing to do is toggle your mic off and on and see if the noise background changes, like I'm going to do now.
Yeah, it didn't. So it's good.
We're 12 minutes past 7, so we probably should start soon.
Yep. I didn't prepare a countdown timer. John's got a nice instrument. Has a name for you.
More actions. Oh, it is. Okay.
Cookies. Are those all test instruments behind you?
Yeah, a lot of them are pretty old.
Well, yeah.
I used to use them a lot more.
I know the feeling.
I feel like I'm losing my skill.
It's getting harder to find broken things that are worth fixing.
Well, I'll try to fix anything until I give up.
I'm just commenting on the repairability of
Right.
sealed
Yeah.
surface mount.
It's about time to refresh my background. Not sure if I should do something from Shang-Chi or from What If.
Orange for Peterborough, second call. Responder 1 Jack Rose, Dollar General. Investigate odor burning in the building.
Guess I'll turn this thing off.
Orange for Peterborough, second call. Responder 1.
I was listening to reports about the big weather system coming. The website, VNTUSKY.
Okay, I don't know that one.
Yeah, you can see what's going on anywhere in the world. It shows you the storm starting, the storm's ending, precipitation, wind, rain, everything you could want.
I've got a favorite researcher down at Florida State Meteorology whose lab web server I follow. All right. Is streaming operating? Yeah, I see your lips moving, Jerry.
Yes, the
Yes, it
triple
is,
dot
and my
says
lips were
it's
moving.
Streaming.
We have achieved quarter past. Shall we go ahead and begin, Jerry?
Yep. Yeah, go ahead and start, but
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm Bill. Every September, we do a cryptology and review talk, and the normally this would include a key signing. For obvious reasons, we won't be standing in a circle and handing each other documents tonight, and that's okay. And I will explain why that's okay. Now, let me hit the...
Yeah, you're full screen now. Let me
Yeah,
check.
and I will hit the follow me just to be sure.
Yeah.
There we go. We've got the follow me.
I'm going to mute everyone except Bill.
Thank you, sir. Folks can use the raise hand or the chat to get my attention. Or manually unmute themselves. So, once again, this year there will be no Web of Trust key signing. And we might not do that again. We'll see. The agenda tonight is the last year's cryptology news. I'm not covering all the security problems of the last year. If you look at either Internet Storm Center or Bruce Schneer's feed, you can see things as they eventuate. I'm only looking at cryptographic ones. I'm not looking at crypto coins or crapto coins or Ponzi schemes. I've ranted about that before. I will probably rant about that again, but today is not that day. We'll discuss why you shouldn't use PGP probably, unless you're a Debian developer, and what you maybe should use instead. Lots of alternatives. We'll look at the year 2021 as a number, and we will do the usual history. A couple of new history items available, and
Hey, Bill,
yo,
I'm checking YouTube. It's not showing you slides. It's just showing your BR in the green circle.
Well, that's the same for the Jitsi meeting too. It's just showing BR. It's not showing the slides.
well, that's not good. I will try resharing.
Okay, that's good.
And
Let's go to my desktop. I don't see it on YouTube yet, but there might be a time delay before it shows up.
maybe follow me is a problem after I do the trick to put myself in the corner.
Yeah, the slides went away again.
It's telling me that I'm in the corner of the slide. Am I not in the corner of the slide?
There is no slide.
Aw. They had they had allowed us to have the person in the corner in what you call conference mode. That is really annoying. Okay. Well, you don't need to see my face. And that's okay.
Fortunately, it's still not showing the slides on YouTube.
Give it a moment. It should be back now.
A little more than a moment. I hear my volume on.
I wasn't expecting this year's topic to be a continuation of last year's. I thought we'd finish that historic vignette, but a late-breaking item in IEEE Spectrum last month gave the other half of the Rubicon Minerva scandal. So, okay, we'll pick up where we left off.
It's not catching up on YouTube. It's still just showing your BR in the green circle.
That is
Not sharing on Jitsi either.
what it tells me I am.
I'm seeing your slides on Jitsi in my web browser window, but the YouTube stream is still it's not showing you slides in the YouTube stream.
That's probably a problem with whatever's doing the streaming then.
Now, what I'm seeing on Jitsi is the BR icon.
Well, it's reporting to me that I'm sharing slides, and I've unclicked and re-clicked Everyone Follows Me without sticking myself in the corner this time. Are you seeing slides on Jitsi now?
I'm seeing the slides on Jitsi.
Okay.
I'm not seeing them on YouTube.
I'm not seeing them on Jitsi.
Well, if Jerry isn't seeing them on Jitsi, that's why it's not going to YouTube.
Right.
Jerry, how about you turn your camera off and see if that gives you enough bandwidth that you receive the screen.
Well, I've got my camera off, and I'm not seeing the slides either, and I'm on Jitsi.
Yeah, I'm seeing that you've lost connection.
You're seeing that I've lost connection? Or
Yeah, if I look at the left corner, it says you've got connection lost.
But you can hear me.
When I look at it, I'm seeing the green thing. It says connection good.
Bill, why don't you exit Jitsi and bring it back up?
It's psychotic. Sure, I can exit and come back in.
I'm seeing Bill's when he connects just fine. Well, now he's disconnected. I don't think the problem was Bill. I think the problem was you, Jerry.
I think so too, but I'm willing to try. Can you see my face?
I see everything. You're back to connection good.
Yeah, I'm seeing Bill's face on YouTube.
Okay, that's an improvement.
You want to share your slides again?
Yep.
Ah, slides.
Got the slides.
It's probably gonna be like 30 seconds or so before it appears on YouTube. Okay, Bill's face again. So now I see the slides in.
Slides are on YouTube?
Yep.
Okay. So, short news, the SolarWinds supply chain hack bypassed multi-factor by forging a multi-factor cookie. They stole the integration secret key. Stealing the key isn't really a cryptographic hack, but it's a standard technique in cryptanalysis, sort of considered cheating, but it works. The interesting historical news, the final Zodiac serial killer, Taunt the Media and the Cops cipher was cracked with computer assistance this last year. You can get full details on that on YouTube. And all the links will be in a separate links document that's easier to get it out of than the PDF or the presentation. We'll make that available to put on the historical calendar. The Spectre meltdown continues to abuse the micro-op cache. This is relevant in a cryptology review because it can leak your key bits if you're sharing a cloud processor. There were a couple of exciting papers that got the cryptology academic community all in a tizzy that blew over like a storm in a teacup. Somebody claimed that they could break 18th and 19th century ciphers with quantum computing, and other people who were working with IBM qubit hardware said that, well, the stability on the hardware is so poor that we can't actually do anything, so it seems unlikely. And given that you can break it without quantum, why should we care? Another one claimed a major breakthrough in factoring without quantum. And he's revised the paper several times, and in fact, it's not so different from his paper of 10 years ago. And the community, after rushing to read the paper and discuss it, has basically yawned and said, yeah, this doesn't change anything. So RSA is still just as good or just as bad as it ever was. Now, we're not doing a PGP key signing. Why might we not do one when we can get back together again? There's no longer any use case for PGP where it's the best tool, except Debian still requires it for you to submit to Debian uploads. And even they have an alternate trust route for rather than using the web of trust that the key signing requires. So is there reason to do a key signing? Maybe not. And there's plenty of argument that other uses of PGP should have stopped several years ago. So it has been very much demonstrated that the public key servers aren't trustworthy, unfortunately. Why the hate? The math is still fine. But having one tool to solve all problems resulted in terrible user experience. And this is why your banker and your HR department will not use PGP to send you a secure email. They'll use some proprietary corporate thing that annoys the heck out of you. I can't give you one answer to what you should replace PGP with, because it depends on A, what you want to do, and B, what you don't want to have happen when you do it. Are you hiding your emails from your boss, from Chinese Secret Service, Russian Secret Service, the FBI, the IRS, reporter with the Boston Globe? Who are you hiding from? For a lot of people, the soon-to-be ex-wife's lawyer is who you should be hiding from. That's a very different use case than hiding from China. Unlike when PGP was created, the internet largely delivers immediately, and things are point-to-point. With secure delivery, it's only insecure when sitting in your Gmail folder waiting for you to look at it. And, well, Gmail was going to decrypt it before they displayed it to you anyway, so the world has changed. Now, what PGP did was it created an attachment which was an encrypted blob that was a replacement body for the message. There are many other ways of encrypting an attachment. They don't have that nice little plug-in to stuff them in and make it appear to be the body of the message when you read it. But, yes, John, I know. We mentioned that with Debian at the top of the deck, and we'll get back to it. Trust me. The Keybase was a popular option for a couple of years, but they just got bought by Zoom, which is hosted in China and has Chinese owners. And depending on your threat model, that might be a problem. Magic Wormhole is interesting. It only works simultaneously, which works on the modern net where most people are connected all the time as opposed to needing store and forward. So a weak horse stapler type password that is used simultaneously has a greater strength than if it was testable offline. Quite intriguing. Most of the recommended replacements are, well, if you want to do secure things, don't use a store and forward protocol, which is what email is. If you want secure chat, use a secure chat application. And again, Keybase was an option, maybe not so much. I really like this tweet from a couple of years ago, so I'll rerun it again. Stop making fun of different end-to-end encrypted tools. Signal is hardened. WhatsApp is popular. OTR is flexible. Wire is beautiful. PGP. And Threema lets you talk to Europeans. NaCl, which is the chemical formula for salt, but it's the network cryptography library. I forget what the A stands for. I don't care. There are two versions that do secure data blobs. Think of a tar file, think of any single file, and is designed to be less prone to user failure than PGP. Alas, Keybase was the leading implementer. Eureka is a symmetric file encryptor. Mentioned Magic Wormhole. The alternatives to a public key server that was getting hacked, well, Keybase, yeah, they were sold to Zoom. And then there's, just putting your key hash or your key, if it's small enough, and the elliptical curve ones are, and your SIG. Okay, I don't like that, but it's possible. Or you can use that end-to-end secure chat application to send the passphrase out of band. Hey, okay, that works. But we need something that makes that safer. For signing software, that's the last use case for GPG PGP, which means Debian. They've replaced the Web of Trust. They still use GPG for the uploads. BSD has abandoned it. They have Signify and Minisign. Maybe Debian will follow suit eventually. For other uses other than those mandated by Debian, the update framework notary service is a way to prove that a file existed in this form at a certain time. And there are other notary services on the web, and that's and those will handle those other use cases where you're trying to provide evidence. Okay, crypto history. Those of you that saw my Chalk Talk years ago when I first did this, I discussed classical and modern cryptography with the transitional mechanical phase in between paper and the stored program computers. Lately, we've been talking about a post-quantum cryptography in Rosy Tomorrow, which is, several years in the future and has been for several years. This is better than 20 years in the future for fusion power, which has been 20 years in the future for 40 years. But it still isn't here yet. And calling it post-quantum is better than calling it post-modern, I guess. So we know that classical is anything with pencils and modern is anything with general-purpose computers. Transitional included the Enigma, other rotor machines, pinwheel machines that look like rotors but aren't rotors because they have pins sticking out the edges instead of pins sticking out the side, and the early discrete digital hardware that we spoke of last year. This year, we'll be talking about reinjection rotors and other advanced rotor systems that were the last of that technology in the Enigma Type X SIG-ABA family before it was completely abandoned. I will repeat last year's slide on quantum. Quantum cryptography, post-quantum cryptography is talking about mostly not using quantum technology for protection, but protecting your cryptography from being attacked with the opponent having a quantum computer that can decode all keys simultaneously or something. And, you know, if you get a big enough quantum computer, you can factor RSA primes immediately. So that this is a reasonable thing to be concerned about. The NIST, which is what the National Bureau of Standards calls itself these days, has a competition like they had with AES encryption, like they had with the latest hashing function for new cryptographies that will be resistant against quantum cryptanalysis. Dilithium crystals is one of the candidates. Gotta love the name. And Michaelis and Frodo are two of the others that Germany's chosen. And switching to post-quantum cryptographic primitives as soon as possible is a good idea if you're worried about anybody saving your messages until they can afford a quantum computer to crack them. It is generally assumed that NSA's Colorado Data Center is the world's largest collection of solid-state drives, keeping a copy of everything they've hoovered up in case they figure out how to crack it later. So, yeah, this might be a good thing. Anyway, there's no new information on this slide, just a reminder that you needn't be panicked about quantum yet, but be glad somebody's working on quantum. Our current year is the product of two near equal size primes, which is exactly how RSA moduli are built. 2021 is 43 times 47, which is 45 plus or minus 2. As it happens, both the Hagelin pinwheel machines and the Tunney pinwheel machines, which are like rotors, but we can distinguish them from rotors. The pinwheels are the ones that have wheels of different size so that they combine in nice mathematical ways, as opposed to the ones that work like odometers, which are your classic rotors. And it was 41, not 43 factor that broke the Tunney when it was plotted on a 25 by 23 and it made a diagonal line. But here are the wheel sizes for the Hagelin C52 and the Tunney Lorenz. And here is a rig demo. I've used Raku, which is what Perl 6 is called these days, to check the factors of those wheel sizes. 43 and 47 are prime. The C52 had a number of wheels that had small primes multiplied by 2 to get a 46, or 2 times 37 for 34, because having a wheel that was as small as 17 would be silly, but this lets you use these small primes. But the factor of 2 isn't going to keep them from having coperiods. Whereas the Tunney or Lorenz SC42 used almost all primes except for 3 times 17 and 2 times 13, so they are truly coprime. So that's our numerology for the year. New declassification in the last year, the final textbook from the NSA's 1970s new cryptologist class was declassified, redacted somewhat, on Freedom of Information Act request. This was a major update to William Friedman's Part 3 textbook. It deals with non-periodic substitution systems, which are approximately what these rotor machines are. The rotor machines are actually periodic, but with a period so long that if you're going to break them, you have to treat them like aperiodic systems sometimes. Well, as demonstrated with that diagonal line on the 25 by 23 grid, sometimes you can break them as a periodic, but if they're using it right, not. Several sections are still redacted. The 1977's training on auto key systems, long and continuous keys, geared disks, key analysis, crypto diagnoses, and depth reading all had large sections that were considered still too sensitive to release to the general public. Even though we sort of have to assume the Russians have figured out most of that, well, we don't want to give it away to smaller countries. And we definitely don't want to let the academics know about it. But the sections on interrupting keys are interesting, and it has actually a fairly decent discussion of the World War II strip system that was equivalent to the Jefferson's cylinder system that was used for medium-level strategic and tactical messages throughout World War II, and they discuss how to break the original form of it and why it was restructured more securely. And it's delightful that they include in the textbook how to break a former U.S. system that was actually used in actual war. Really kind of neat. I'd seen discussions of how the Germans broke it in the TICOM paperclip documents and some high-level discussions, but this is right there in the textbook, teaching students how to do it and giving them problems in the back of the book that they're expected to break in class or in the classroom after class, because you can't take your homework home if you're studying at the NSA. New historical resources. Dermot Turing, nephew of Alan Turing, whom John spoke about a couple months ago, has 2 books out and has been leaving videos all over YouTube as he's been guest speaker, where he makes sure to redress the historic balance. Uncle Alan did an awful lot of wonderful stuff, but the early books, which were working in a only partially declassified environment, gave Alan credit for things that other people did. And the classified world couldn't then correct the academic historical record to properly differentiate what Alan Turing and his friends at Bletchley did separately between the several departments versus what the Poles did before they did the handoff versus what the Colossus team did, which was mostly a separate team from the Enigma team. There was some movement of research people back and forth. And it's the Colossus side, which is more the origin of modern computing, even though Alan Turing had the theoretical basis with the Turing machine for considering that a universal general purpose computer would be possible. So it's nice of Dermot to share credit. While we, the public, wanted a retrospective knighting of Alan Turing, they gave the knighthood to Dermot. Well, that's how the monarchy works, I guess. He's making good use of it. So, transitional cryptography. We mentioned that the rotors and the pinwheels in electromechanical settings that were sort of similar to adding machines and odometers, but with rat's nest wiring inside for the rotors, or with combinatorials circuits for the pinwheels, were transitional between the pencil and paper era and the true electronic era, and general purpose computing after that, and modern. The Enigma was the earliest practical of the rotor machines. Based on what they knew about Enigma, both the British and the Americans came up with better rotor machines, as did the Japanese. And but they were still the same basic principles, and had the sort of innovations that the Germans added to late model Enigmas. But after World War II, the Army rolled out new machines based on a principle discovered in 1944, where you take some output pins from your waterfall of rotors, each of which has a rat's nest encipherment. Thank you, Jerry. And feed it back in another input. This means you have to have more inputs and more outputs than the number of symbols that you're encoding and ciphering. Which, initially Enigma had 26 inputs, 26 outputs, 26 pins on each side of each rotor, and that was just enough for the letters in the alphabet. Not enough if you're Cyrillic, more than enough if you're some of the European alphabets that don't quite get to 26, but that's what they were using. Which also meant they didn't get to do their accents or umlauts, but so this is running it through twice. Now, the Enigma ran it through twice in one sense, and then it reflected back through the same stack, which caused one minor problem in that the letter E could never encipher itself, so that you could guess where a word was by where there wasn't an E. Where there wasn't an E is where there might be an E in what they've enciphered. This was helpful for cribbing. But this is re-injecting from the input side in addition to or in lieu of reflection. And here you have a picture of it going through 3 times through the red wires. And that's that increases the scramble. And we have a weather alert. Thank you. The if that's a tornado warning for Boston, somebody let me know. This is sort of in retrospect obvious, but brilliant to see it the first time. I'm inferring that it only re-injects some of the time because there's no way to force the first pass through to hit one of the re-injecting wraparound wires. But that's okay. That puts a irregularity into the system. Some of the time it's once through or once in a reflection, and sometimes it's once in a reflection and then re-injected and wrap around la-di-da, and that will make it harder to cryptanalyze the rotor system. So I think that's okay. So last month, IEEE Spectrum published this paper, The Scandalous History of the Last Rotor Cipher Machine, how this gadget figured in the shady Rubicon spy case, which is what we discussed last year. Crypto AG, the Hagelin company, had rediscovered the reinjection principle, and the secret U.S. patent granted to Army Signals wasn't noticed as blocking prior art, so they were actually allowed to get a U.S. patent, which tipped off NSA's Friedman, who went racing over to Zug, Switzerland, and said, you can't do this. This would be as secure as our KL7, and that would be a problem. This was Hagelin's only second attempt at a rotor as opposed to a pinwheel machine. And it got killed. It got killed so fast, only 12 of them were built. Apparently 2 survive. There's an auction record for one, and this article discusses the discovery and repair of a second. Were the other 10 destroyed? Are they in private collections? Are they in government hands? It's quite possible that a couple of the cryptography museums have a couple. I haven't checked their inventories, so maybe there are a few more known. Now you can see in the picture, there are a bunch of rotors in the middle here. There are a bunch of big number rotary switches in the back that control the reflector and various other things that cover the, sort of replace the Enigma Stecker board, the plug board. It prints out on sticky paper strips both the enciphered and the plain text. And cute little machine. Only 12 of them. And some websites claim that the Russian Fialka, which is sort of their equivalent of the Sigaba and the Type X, but also sort of their equivalent of the KL7, had reinjection, but based on circuit diagrams I've looked at over the last few days, no. It may have had security roughly equivalent to and is a final transitional rotor machine, but it does not appear to actually have reinjection because it only has 30 pins on its rotors for 33 Cyrillic letters. There are no extra pins to do re-injection. In fact, they're having to get a few of the rarer Cyrillic letters handled in shift to numbers mode, shift to figures. So yeah, I don't think it's re-injecting. Interestingly, though, because they'd been able to attack some of our cipher machines by monitoring the electrical power jacks in our embassies, they had feedback from their Fialka to the power supply to modulate the power drawn from the wall to compensate for lower power demand. So that there was no signal being released onto the line. This is the equivalent to a modern hardware, software cipher having constant time of execution of each step of the encipherment of a letter. So you can't tell by watching the speed of encipherment or decipherment what the key letters are. Equivalent problem. And the Russians had that figured out while they were listening to us. Thank you, guys. But the websites that say this is re-injecting, I think are wrong. But I'm covering it here since some places say that it is, and it is late transitional. Hello? Oh, I tried to page down in the Jitsi meeting instead of in the slide. That didn't work well. The earlier American re-injection machine, which was shared with the Brits, at least somewhat, was the KL7, also known as Pollux Adonis, also known as FSAM7. The Brits called it BID 60 singlet. Had 10 rotors, 26 letters, and 10 re-injection contacts, which is why you have blank spots between Z and A and between B and C on the rotors. You've got 10 extra contacts on each rotor wheel, which is, so there's some, that's where you have the extra space for the feedback loops. But that means that there's only a 1/3 chance that it's going to feed back on as opposed to just directly outputting. But that's enough to mess things up, so that's good. This system being supposedly invulnerable to Bletchley Park style cryptanalysis is why the Soviets had the Walker ring steal the key sequences being used to set up the machines and issued the Walker ring with pocket decoders that could read out what the internal wiring of the rotors were. So you had Walker Navy men, I hope they're not cousins, going into the code room and going through the wheels that weren't currently in the machine, reading out all 36 mappings for each of the wheels that wasn't in the machine, and sending those to their Soviet handlers. Thanks, guys. And the after accurate Java and C++ simulations were published, the system was completely declassified. You can get a full set of schematics on the web today, which is, you know, moderately quick turnaround. Since we got through that fairly quickly, I'm just going to bring up the IEEE article, and we scroll through that because that'll give us more view of the HX63, which This is the IEEE article by John D. Paul. He says he grew up in New York City and wanted to be a spy. He found in a dingy sub-basement in a French military communications base the yes, John, I'll post the link over here so you can follow along, but I will also be sending you a full set of all the links for everything after the meeting so you can post it in the notes section. And in the interest of history, the nice French two-star generals let him take this antique machine and rehabilitate it as an antique because it was completely useless since it had never really been in production use. There were only 12 of them. The French only had 2 of them. And anything they'd sent via it was, obsolete. Who cares? So there it was. And he did a nice little video where he describes the fun of repairing it. I really need to be trying to scroll the window. And here's what it looks like with the skin off. Looking at the underside here, cast aluminum base. You can see the connectors at the bottom. Use 9 of 12 rotors at a time. You can see they nest. So they solved the problem of the pins by having the pins be horizontal and mating face to face instead of sliding around each other the way Enigma pins did. Breakthrough. Only done once. Picture William Friedman. Yeah. So here's his picture of how a simple non-reflecting Enigma would have gone through once. In reality, it went back through from the reflector and showing the side-to-side face pins instead of the radial face pins of this machine. Here's a picture of the rotors in place. And here's a detailed picture of how the HX63 would do reinjection. Keyboard injects at one of the 26 letter positions. It gets scrambled through the rotors going through, gets reflected back letter to letter, and then if it comes out on one of the 10 non-letter positions, it gets re-injected back in. Gray, it gets re-injected back around to a second reflection, wrap around, which then should reflect back through. There are some subtleties here that I would like more information on. And this was just threatening to the NSA, which is why they had it suppressed and paid handsomely to have it suppressed. So that's that. And you should be seeing me again. So, questions?
We see a BR.
Unmute yourself or use the chat.
Some BR in a reddish purple circle now.
Sorry, you're seeing BR in a purple circle?
Not purple, kind of the reddish maroon purple. Not seeing
The system tells me I'm sending my face.
I'm not seeing your face. I'm just seeing the initials in the colored circle.
Well, that doesn't really hurt anything on the video because my face is not important. I can see your face. I can see my face. But anyway, questions? Or this isn't so much a question as a comment. Yes, Randy, I turned the slides off because the slides are over. Did anybody see the IEEE article after I turned the slides off?
Oh, yeah, I saw the article.
Okay, good. Then you saw everything that was important.
Yeah, I concur with Jerry. I've also seen that gray circle that says Cook and Lost.
Yeah, I've got a connection lost on you. I can hear you, but I can't see you.
It says to me that I've got 2.3 megabits per second up. So I don't know. But it says frame rate NA. You'd think it'd give a frame rate if it was video.
Now you're picture.
Whatever. Anyway, questions?
Now you're green.
Jerry, you're muted.
Actually, I wasn't muted.
That's better. You wanted to say something, Jerry?
No, you're green now. Your connection
It
is.
says you're unmuted, but I'm not hearing you.
Yeah, this is stupid.
I hear him.
We seem to be getting inconsistent results within Jitsi.
Yeah.
Very.
Okay, I'm unmuted. You've got a good connection right now.
I definitely want to go back to using Cat 6 instead of 5 gigahertz for my video sharing device next time.
I'm Wi-Fi here because I'm in a rental unit. I didn't want to run wires all over the place.
I reconnected again. Wonder if I can hear Jerry now. Say something, Jerry, would you?
Okay, I'm saying something. Can you
Yes,
hear me?
yes, I can hear you.
Good. Yeah, I reset my Wi-Fi antenna.
And I reset my connection with Jitsi. So were you trying to ask a question to begin with or just commenting on my circle?
Commenting on your circle.
Oh, okay. Does anybody have a substantive question?
Well, doesn't seem that way. Most people are still muted. The cameras are off. So there's no way of telling how many people fell asleep.
There's only one person that I've got a screen capture of their nodding off while their camera was on. Being saved as blackmail.
Blake Parker used to bring in a water pistol because Jabber used to nod off during our meetings.
Traditional in the old Puritan churches was the ushers had a pole with a feather at one end and a wooden knob at the other. Deacons, they would tickle with the feather. Anyone else, they'd bonk with the knob. Their sermons ran 2 hours and the services 4, so this was a very real problem.
Does anyone know who Kurt with a C was?
He's been around before. We had dual Kurts frequently.
Yeah, Kurt with a C. That's can't remember his last name off the top of my head.
Hey, Bill, you say you
He's a
know,
regular at our meetings.
you know for sure we've had multiple Kurts with a C?
No, we've had Kurt with a C and Kurt with a K frequently when you know who is doing hardware.
Yep.
I checked our mailing list stuff for Kurt with a C and I couldn't find one.
Kurt with a K knows he can ask me questions offline and maybe expecting the time shift with YouTube.
When I post the text in the chat, I like to fill in the people's names if the name isn't fully spelled out. When you see. But there's always a bunch
Yeah,
of
but
people.
we can barely hear you.
That might be a feature.
Yep.
And so there are always a handful of names where I don't know who they are. So I have to put them at the bottom that just like anonymous attendees.
And since links in a presentation document are difficult to deal with, I've got a separate markdown file of all the links and an HTML generated from that you can include in the notes, Jabber. Has all the goodies. Including where to get a declassified NSA textbook.
I always like to save a cache copy locally on the website.
Oh, obviously. And you might want to go through parts 1 and 2 before tackling part 3. It's the advanced class.
I guess if there are questions, you may as well just call it a night. And we have Federico next month.
Oh, good.
And he's also going to speak in January for his scale cut. We still need to find someone for November and someone for December. And if anyone has any ideas for November and December, let's do them. Oh, we can take that in email. Let's install the video over.
It probably can kill the stream.
You want to end the stream, Jerry?
What? I can't hear you.
I said, you want to stop the live stream?
Okay, we'll do that.